going, folks? Hope you had a good week so far. Um, you borderline podcast disordarians. I had an okay week. Um, I thought my last checkup for my stomach issue was on Monday, but I was wrong. It's next Monday. They had to split the two tests, one each week, but that's okay. It could be worse. I could not get tested and just feel as horrible as I felt a few weeks ago. But anyway, yeah. Besides of that, it's been an okay week. The weather has been lovely. I've been enjoying this. I've been enjoying spending time with Sarma and Pickle as well, who are growing every week, which is as expected. I think um, that's just the way it works, I guess. But as I'm talking at you now, I'm watching them fight over a piece of string, or a string of a string of like material, ropey sort of stuff. But anyway, yeah, no, they are wonderful. We love them so much, and you're gonna love this episode. I think. I hope. You don't have to, but it would be really nice if you did, because I really loved having Pablo around. We talked about a lot of stuff, a lot. And what's more exciting is that he's been really busy. We've obviously we've met each other. We've met doing a comedy show together, but you'll find out from him as well. He's not been done as much comedy at the moment because he was busy with other things, and very very I'd say very good things. Very exciting things. Um, there's a movie called Lost coming on the 29th of June. It's coming out in a couple of days, right? And it's going to be, or at least it's going to be showcased at the Brighton Films Festival, which is exciting, you know. And it looks good. It looks great. And if you can, check it out. If not, just check out Pablo's socials, which are going to be in the um, bio of this episode, and see where there's going to be a screening around you. It's good to help out. Why won't you? And I think the storyline of the movie, it's amazing. um yeah, I think I'm just gonna let you enjoy the my conversation with Pablo. It was a very honest conversation. We talked about mental health. um Obviously, there was, not obviously, but there was a trigger warning for anyone listening. The worst, we were talking about some self-harm and suicidal thoughts and things like that. So look, take what you will from that, folks. But I think it was a lovely chat, and I'll catch you later. So enjoy. Cool. Well, Pablo, hello and welcome. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for coming, taking the time, to come over. And yeah, I mean the weather it's okay, So
Yeah, it's all right. It's
right,
a good old London spring
yeah,
to
in
go wear tons of layers. Yeah,
in June, but
yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's the lovely, it's a beautiful London spring in
Yeah,
June. But yeah, how besides of this, how have you been?
I've been I've been all over the place. I feel like there've been up and downs in my life. Um, because we haven't seen each other in a long time.
No, we haven't. Yeah, it was,
Yeah,
I think, a gig around Finsbury
yeah, yeah. It's
over a year ago.
yes, over a year ago. That's where we met, I
Yeah,
think. And there was someone else there.
Adam.
Yeah, Adam.
Yeah,
Yeah, which he's texted me a couple of times to be a bringer, but other than that, yeah, because I haven't really been doing stand up lately. Because I've been focusing on filmmaking.
Which is fair enough. It looks
Yeah,
wonderful. We're going to talk about it.
but yeah, I mean, whenever you want me to. But yeah, so I guess to answer your question, I've been living. Yeah, I'll say that because I'm not like when I look at my life is wonderful, really, the way it is. Like I've got a roof over my head. I've got really lovely close relationships that I fall back on. I go to therapy and I'm employed and I'm able to pay my rent. So my life is really quite wonderful. But there's always like challenges along the way.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, one of those things, if you didn't have the challenges, then you wouldn't appreciate the actual good moments. But just like you said, it's never consistent. You can't just go up and up. Sometimes you go down, sometimes you go up. And
Yeah.
so, how long have you done therapy for?
It's coming up to 6 years now.
6 years.
Yeah.
How did you get
I'm a
into
nut.
it?
Yeah. What?
Welcome to the party
Thank
then.
you.
But how did you get into it?
Um, can I be a bit of a bummer on the podcast?
Yeah, go on.
So I kind of like wanted to kill myself.
Oh, same. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
absolutely fine. I
I
mean, not
yeah,
not in that
yeah,
sense, but in
yeah.
the sense of like, yes,
Yeah,
be
you
as open
should.
as you want.
Yeah, yeah.
You can swear as well, so that's
Oh,
absolutely
great,
fine.
great, great. Yeah, so this dates back to 2016 or 17. Just come back for 6 years from now. And it was like a year before I started going to therapy. I fell into a very deep, deep depression. And to the point where I wouldn't leave my bed and I would just like call in sick at work every day until they would tell me off because I was taking the piss. And I was just like, I would sleep for like 2 hours a night and I would like, because I couldn't fall asleep because I was like just thinking about how miserable I was. And then I would wake up like, an hour and 45 minutes later, like 2 hours before my alarm goes off, just like stare at the ceiling and cried. It was just like it was feeling so, so terrible, terrible. And um, and generally, I generally wanted to like end my life. And I also like, I didn't want to make a statement. I wanted to do it very discreetly.
Yeah.
So I was going to make it seem like an accident as well. Because there's a history of suicide in my family. Yeah. So I didn't, so, and I've seen the, the effects of it in my family. And I was like, well, I don't want to cause any kind of grief to anyone. I just want to quietly and painlessly stop living.
Yeah.
And I'll make it seem like an accident. I had it all thought out. Like I make it seem like a traffic accident. So it's like no one, like it will be like less painful for my family or whatever. But then when I was thinking about, I know you're so I wish people could see you right now. Like your jaw's on the floor right now.
It's because I've been there. That's
Yeah.
why. And I'm like, oh my God, like every time people are like so honest about it, which is beautiful. I think, because again, this is the way, I think it's normalizing talking about it and like
Yeah.
being like, this is how it feels. So that's why my joke, because in some aspects, which I'll tell you later, I have been through the same, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, and then I think at the time what happened was that, and I truly believe that what got me to that point of suicidal ideation was isolation. Like I know that was true for me, and I know that will be true for so many other people as well. Because I feel like when you have suicidal ideation, when you're like thinking about death and wanting, do you don't want to live anymore? Usually, what a lot of people go through in their minds is that no one will understand this kind of suffering. Like, no, I can't reach out to anyone for help because they're going to be shocked. They're going to be scared for me, or they're just like playing, not going to understand. And, or they're going to minimize it. They're going to be like, oh, just don't be depressed. Like, just,
Classic.
and so you feel like no one, I'm special. Like, no one's going through what I'm going through. No one's going to understand. Therefore, the only solution is killing myself. And the truth is, you're not special because you're sad. Like everyone's, and my family is very. My both of my parents are doctors.
No way.
Yeah, so I feel like I was raised in a lab. Like like my parents' approach to parenting was so clinical, so clinical. And my there's uh my uncle died of suicide when I was 13 or 14. I can't remember exactly how old it was. I was, uh, and and my parents, like their approach to mental illness, especially suicide, is always like is very pathologizing. Is always say like making it very clear that my uncle died because he had an illness, and like pathologizing mental health can be. I understand why people do it. It's a way of legitimizing um what for centuries have been dismissed as you're just having a mood or you're just weak or whatever. Like I understand why people do it. Like if we elevate uh mental ailments to the category of like physical ones, hopefully we'll pay them as much attention. Hasn't happened yet, but hopefully, I understand that. But I feel like taken to the extreme, this is my own opinion, but taken to the extreme, you can it can be very othering and very isolating. So I feel like what happens with my parents, I think so. I haven't talked about it in with them in depth a little bit with my dad, but I think what happens with people like my parents is that they will, if a person like takes their own life, they will assign an illness so rare and bizarre to explain it, and also to but it's a way as well of saying, oh, it's terrible what happened to this person, but it would never happen to me
Ah,
because they have this illness and I don't have it. And the truth, and I like to say that if suicidal depression even is an illness, is as common as the flu. Like anyone can get it. Like
yeah.
literally anyone can get it. Like it's not. Um, is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, I have a bit of, as you can see, I have like so many opinions about depression and suicide and treating, pathologizing mental illness.
But that's interesting because then I didn't know about like your parents being doctors as well, and that's very interesting because then I think you go from I don't know. I guess people who that was a very good point about like everyone tries to like explain, like, oh, this is actually why this is happening, or
Yeah, my point, for example, something we were talking about off mic before we started. You told me about your BPD diagnosis, and you're explaining it to me. And I would one of the things I said was, it sounds like a lot of people will benefit from all these like therapy and help that you're getting, not just the people with the diagnosis. And I think um, I I I would like to think that that proves my point. I think it's great that you have a diagnosis for whatever it is that you're going through, because in the world that we live in, it's almost like you're not allowed to get help unless you have a diagnosis. But it's really sad because I feel like maybe some people will fall this short from a BPD diagnosis by whatever parameters they use to diagnose, and that doesn't mean they're fine. Like they still need help just because it's not as severe in them as it is in and you who got the diagnosis. So yeah, it's complex and yeah.
and also I think such like a huge thing about this. I always think about because I get it. Sometimes people are like, oh, I'd rather not get a diagnosis for whatever it is, whether it's like a learning disability or if it's
Mm.
mental health like disorder, whatever it is, um, condition, etc. But I actually find it more empowering because at least now I'm like, you know what, I get it. Like I understand why the I get to go through the things I go through. I get why like my head is because also like with BPD, interestingly enough, it's apparently I think there is basically is the highest percentage of any personality disorder or like mental health illness
Yeah.
that ends in suicide.
Wow.
And and then when after I got that, because I think at the beginning beforehand, when I've kind of like I tiptoed around with like suicidal ideation since I was 14,
Mm-hmm.
and I always thought, and I haven't talked about it since a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And then always like in my head I was like, oh, nobody can get it. It's just, it's just the way it is. And
How did it feel to hold on to that for so many years?
oh man, it was weird. I think 'cause I think I was scared actually because my thought of, so because I was actually, when you were saying before about how you'd like try to make it an accident, I was that was one of the ways I planned it as well. I planned it to do it as a first. I thought I would just like fall off the window,
Yeah.
and then but then I thought, oh well, if I don't die, because I there were loads of trees around the house. Because I grew up on the third floor at the time,
Yeah.
and but then I was still
First or
scared.
third? Sorry.
Third,
Third floor.
third
Yeah.
floor. So there was a chance, a slight chance.
Yeah.
There was a chance that I would have not died, and
Yeah.
only injured myself. And the
And
idea
you
of,
can't find an excuse to climb all the way to the roof and make it seem like an accident. You know what I mean?
well, no, the thing is, because I thought I could just be like around the window and I
Yeah.
can just because I was at the time. I remember the first time was I was planning to eventually like to my mom used to hire have this like cleaning lady who
Yeah.
would clean the windows for us, and I thought I would just offer to clean the windows myself, and then I'd just be like, oh no, silly me.
I'm sorry, but I'm sorry I'm laughing, but like I think it's so. I find really like the extent and the other complications that we go to. Like I find that very relatable, and that's
But
why I'm like,
you see, this is the thing, and then I think like years later, the only one where I considered like hanging myself was actually at the home, like in the UK. And then I planned on like, oh, I go on the top floor, and then I just like put the rope there, and then I will like climb the balustrade on my floor, and then just like let go.
wow,
But that was the only thing. But then yeah, I think even before, then after that, like more recent years, I thought about, oh, I need to send my family money for the funeral, because if I die. But then I was like, how can I justify sending this much money? Because I've never cared about like because some people would go, oh, I thought about saying that, oh, I just want to save up money and put it in a Romanian bank account, since like how it would have looked too suspicious.
yeah. I guess you have to go to a notary. Like this is where suicide gets complicated.
Yeah.
You need to go to a notary and say, hey, I'm putting aside this money. It's for my funeral. Yeah.
Which may happen in a couple of weeks. So yeah, make it quick.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, that was the thing. I always remember kind of like, no, okay, I'll send my mom, because my mom was still around at the time. And I said like, oh, I'll send my mom the money. But then I was like, how, like she's gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
And then, but then also I thought, well, if I jump into something, or I think moving to London, I always thought about the trains as well. But then I was like, if you, and also it's very painful apparently, because
Yeah.
like the electrocution and the actual like that death itself is not an easy one.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is I was like, no, if ideally I could just I kind of make scenarios like maybe I get I because I was thinking like, oh, what can I remember this was the last time I think before I seeked help, and I went online. I was like, what medication can I overdose on?
Yeah.
And the first article that you get is, oh, you should contact like a medical
Yeah.
professional. Your life may be in danger. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then like one thing led to another. But yeah, coming back, it was harder because when I was younger, I was scared a lot because I thought people are going to think I'm crazy, and then I'm going to
Yeah.
go into like a mental,
Institution,
my
yeah.
idea of like mental health was very much like one of those shirts that ties from the back.
Yes.
You know?
Straight jacket.
Straight jacket. Yeah, that was my idea of like people dealing with it. And also I come from, and it's not to say I think I was brought up in a wonderful, I think that my parents did the best they could. Like the community that I grew up in did the best they could. But it's also one of those things where it's like, you stop being sad, like, come on. If you, I think my although again I have never had to discuss with my dad, but I remember even when my dad was angry or something, it'd be like, you find something to do, and then you forget about being sad.
Yeah.
And it was always the constant
Yeah.
fine. So that, yeah, that's what it was like. That's what it was like.
Yeah. I do you think that your environment plays a part or played a part in your depression and your suicidal ideation? Because I've had a lot of conversations around how just the idea that people who are going through suicidal depression, they have a distorted perception of reality, which I think it can to a certain degree is true, because like you wouldn't, there's people who've survived worse than have experienced, and you know they didn't kill themselves or try to. So but at the same time, I don't know, I feel like when you're in those state of mind, when you're in that state of mind where just everything seems so major and so like insufferable, um you I feel like sometimes your environment plays a part. I don't know.
I I think it's everything. You know, you or at least I did for a very long time. I used to I blamed um everything or everyone around me beside of me.
Yeah.
So I went through that phase, and then but then again, it's not to say because again, yeah, sometimes. But that's the thing. I think everything that the way whatever we do or the way we live, it eventually impacts us in one way or another.
Yeah.
Looking back at it, I wouldn't say that. I don't know because also that's the thing. Look, especially now and in situations such as going through like seeking professional support, you find out that yeah, sometimes there are people who lack certain certain things in their like their brain that actually would
Yeah.
boost their so maybe that again like there is clearly an
It's on a case by case basis,
yeah, it's a case by
obviously.
case exactly. I don't think I wouldn't be I look, there were things that were
Yeah.
like that happen or like basically because I do sometimes I would wake up in like the middle of the night and I'd be like, oh my god, there was like such a like the biggest asshole in like my fifth grade class, and like he was such, and I hated that guy and
Yeah.
I wish I punched him in the face or whatever, you know or sometimes you're like, oh, I think about an argument I had, or like when someone bullied me when I was younger,
Yeah.
and I would wake up thinking, oh, I'm the biggest piece of shit in the earth.
Yeah.
I should have stand up for myself, although I was only
Yeah.
9 years old.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those things happen, but I think yeah, it's a case to case basis.
Yeah. Because I always think that I always feel like I feel like my parents also did the best that they could. They did their best for sure, and also they did so much better than like any of my aunts and uncles. Sorry, well, they're not listening because they don't speak English.
The
Um,
luck of
yeah,
being foreign.
but when I think about it, I was like, oh, I kind of like won the lottery with my parents because my uncles, yikes. And my grandparents, like double yikes, like like, but still, even though, like I haven't met a set of parents that would make a better like set of parents than mine. Like even like at school, like I looked at my 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 classmates' parents, and they were always like this like cartoon like chain smokers, or like they were like always on the, or this other couple was always like on the brink of divorce, or someone like had someone. I've got a friend whose parents like his dad cheated on his mum with his secretary, and then they were like a par, and then they got together like a year later. It was just like such a like telenovela, like soap opera, like bullshit that I was like, I really lacked out. Like, but on the flip side of that, I still feel like there were so many things about my upbringing, like so many things that my parents did, like in a well-meaning way, that kind of like fucked me up a little bit. Um, namely, I mean, I could go. There's so many I could go on and on and on. But namely, like I always struggle with ADHD since I was 4. Like I was diagnosed at 4, and my parents decided to not medicate me because my dad said, well, he's if he takes medication, like he's gonna have to take it for the rest of his life, so he might as well learn to live with it. And which I kind of agree with today, but there were some steps left out. So, for example, if you're not going to medicate your child with ADHD, you need to offer him some other kind of support. And there was none of that. But also because I think at the time there was none of that. Like
Yeah.
there was no, um, yeah, there was no program at school that I could join. There was no, yeah, like therapy that I could go to, not in my hometown anyway. So yeah, I some of the worst,
It's all good.
some of the worst memories I have from childhood are school related because I struggle so much with academia. I always felt dumb and I always felt like I was falling behind, and just everyone had their own like way to study and learn, like just like study, like memorize chapters of a book for an exam, and I just like couldn't figure it out. It was just so painful. I had nightmares about my A levels until I was 24. Yeah, I know. Until I was like 24, 25, I was still having recurring nightmares about my A levels because it was like one of the worst periods in my life. Um, and then yeah, and then like my sexuality as well. I feel like my parents, they wanted to be supportive, but they didn't know how. Like they thought it was enough for them to be like, oh, we like like we love you all the same and we don't care, and that's good. But then let's not acknowledge that how homophobic the like the rest of the family is, and let's not acknowledge how basically, yeah, I feel like a lot of parents, like they don't, for me, like the ideal scenario would be like you should raise your children assuming that they might be gay even if they turn out not to be, because otherwise you're just like indoctrinating like a bunch of like heteronormative bullshit, and that's gonna, if you happen to have a queer child, he's gonna feel ordered by it and he's gonna feel isolated by it. So yeah, I mean, didn't know what to do really, but I feel like all these things kind of like piled up. And one of the one of the ones that I struggle with the most probably is the fact that that I was a very creative child and I wanted to have a creative career. I feel like I feel like my parents are very creative people, but I feel like they've sacrificed or they've put their creativity in the background for the sake of financial stability, social prestige as well, because they have a they're doctors and they have a job that is not always well paid, but is very high profile. Like it does give you sort of like social prestige. Like I grew up with patients walking up to my dad on the street and like thanking him, and we always got like a shit ton of like Christmas presents and from patients from my mom and my dad. So I always grew up admiring that about my parents because like, oh, like people like them and they're
Yeah.
important in our like little corner of the world. Like it's being a small town doctor is a bit like being a celebrity. Um, so I think like they prioritize that, like they chose jobs that they are um they like in which they can help, like they can be of use and they can draw a sense of purpose from them. And they also, because they work in public healthcare, a lot of stability, like they're lifers, like they're and but yeah, on the flip side, I think they did sacrifice on a lot of um like exercising that creative muscle, and I didn't want that for myself. Like I feel like Um, I have this theory. Tell me what you think about this. I feel like we're all creative as children, and then we just have the creativity like beaten out of us, kind of. I think so a little bit. I feel like this creativity is something is like child's play. Is about being free and playful and
I think I I see the because I would say I agree, but that is not. I think again it's not necessarily something that a person has to agree or disagree with. But I'd say from the way, yeah, I get it because agree with you. Everyone is. I think everyone has a certain level of creativity in one way or another because that's just imagination, right? So that's everyone has an imagination.
yeah. I feel like all the kids they're just doing improv in the playground, like when they're just playing make
Well,
believe.
that's the thing. Yeah, you play like you
Yeah.
play like be a doctor. Like I know I used to play like being a soldier,
Yeah.
or like you go through these things where yeah, I remember I used to 'cause now this is the first time I thought about it in years, but
Yeah.
I used to have like my parents would let some of my neighbors babysit me, and then this old neighbor of mine, she had loads of like suitcases, but like those I don't know whether you might have seen them. They were very popular in basically like in the 70s, 80s, 90s as like army suitcases. You can still find them. They are very good, very expensive. Again,
Mhm.
you can still find, but then they were like, again, now they are expensive because they are like a vintage, thrifted sort of thing, and they are very good quality. But anyway, she had loads of them and she had loads of different sizes, and she had one which was very small. So I used to actually play around with that as if like I'm going to the army and then I'm
Nice.
coming back. And then I remember I would go so far ahead of going like, oh well, I'm old now, I'm going to become the mayor of the city.
Nice.
So you and
I
that's
love that for you though. Like it's an army vet and politician. Like it's really cool.
well, you see, this is
I
the
want
thing.
that for you now.
So well, I don't I've only I mean the thing is I attempted I've done 3 almost 4 months of military school, and then
Wow,
I
I should
gave,
know that.
yeah, I gave in, although because the thing is like
What did you do it voluntarily or
it was it's something called the military. So in Romania, you have
yeah.
colleges and military colleges. So then the way it works is that you kind of like you do your A levels,
Yeah.
and is that A levels when you're 14,
I think you're 16.
16? Well, we do something similar to the A levels at 14. And then at 14, you basically get to choose where you're going to study between 14 and 18.
Yeah.
So that's the college time.
Yeah.
And then my parents decided, and yeah, for me, on my behalf, I should do well at going, because military colleges are like elite colleges in Romania, because you learn extensive maths, extensive linguistics, extensive biology, chemistry,
Yeah.
physics. So they were like, this would be the best for you
Yeah.
to prepare you for like again university and
Uh-huh.
professional life. But also, if you were to go to a military college, then you already get out with a grade. So after those 4 years, you'd actually have a grade in the military already,
Ah, okay.
although you don't necessarily serve in the way of like having to leave the country or being on a battlefield. You're actually
Yeah.
in campus, or like you're in school the whole time.
Mm.
You just learn how to do certain
Can
things,
you be drafted?
not through those 4 years,
Okay.
because you have to still be 18 to be able to get
Of
drafted.
course, yeah.
I think some, again, it depends in the different situations. Luckily, in Romania, there was not the case of being at a war. So, although I'll come back to that. But anyway, so yeah, so basically, I did, like, my parents were like, look, we think this is going to be beneficial for you. Got into it, then I hated it so much. Everyone in my family has served for different periods of time. Like my dad
Mm.
did the mandatory time. My brother-in-law, my uncles ended up becoming either like staying in the army or becoming police officers, and like
Mm.
of like high prestige. So then I thought, yeah, this sounds kind of like how it should be. So I thought, yeah, let's try it. But then I just like a few months in, I was like, I hate this. And I there was a pommel horse that we were using for like a PE, and
Mhm.
I basically just run into the pommel horse with like a head in,
Wow.
and I basically I injured my neck.
Ouch.
And it was before Christmas because they wouldn't allow us to have the Christmas off.
Yeah.
So then I thought, I'm just gonna get ill. I'm gonna get this injury and go home for Christmas. And then
Smart.
I never got back.
Smart.
Yeah, so that was the way to deal with it.
I see a pattern here of how you like to solve things by injuring yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was it. And wait, what were we? Uh,
I was talking a little bit
the
about
creativity. Yeah.
creativity. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
No, you were gonna ask me
I
something.
was going to ask, yeah, how did you start it for you? Like, what was your creative, what were your creative outlets, and when did you start to discover them?
I I'm not sure when it started. I'm not sure if I can pinpoint one one moment because I knew I was very creative as a child. Like I knew that when I was like 4 or 5, I would write these comic books
No way.
with and it was like I know exactly where it came from in my brain because basically it was like a romana clef of my like school. So it was basically I was writing what happened in my day of school, but I was like changing the names,
What you
like
were writing at
fictionalizing.
5, at 4,
Yeah. Do you know?
writing
Yeah.
like words.
Yeah, you can write at 4 or 5, right? Maybe I was 6. No, 6 I would be in school already. It was before school. It was like 5. Yeah. People write. Why are you looking at me like that?
Because I started writing at I think at 6, but that's because I went to school 1 year early. I didn't know how to write. Anyway, well
Yeah,
done, well done.
in preschool they teach you a little bit, right?
No, at least not where I.
I well, if you see it, there's no literary merit to it. Don't worry. It's like I went to school today.
Yeah,
You know, Mrs. Whatever was there. Like that was it. Like it's
yeah,
don't
yeah.
worry. Like I wasn't writing
But I like.
sonnets. You
No,
know.
no, no. But
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
I like the fact that you would change the name as if there were so
Well,
many
because
teachers.
there were whales. There were whales. I made them. It was a
Right.
underwater school, and everyone was a whale. And I think I think it's because my dad uh, loved watching nature documentaries. Like after when he came home, he would put like a nature documentary and like take a nap in the sofa. I guess because it's soothing. It just like puts him to bed.
Yeah.
So I watched so many nature documentaries that I guess like it made sense to make my classmates and my teacher into animals. So
Right.
there was probably I don't know when I wrote it, but there was probably a nature documentary about whales playing. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, my teacher is a whale and she wears lipstick or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
And then before
I
you.
have them. I'll show them to you.
Sorry.
I have them. I'll show them to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know what? If you, I'll get a picture. And
The words are like this big because I'm 5. I'm
Yeah,
being
yeah, of
like,
course. Yeah.
yeah,
Ah, yeah. You write like that,
probably.
mom, right? With
Yeah.
like massive.
Yeah.
I.
They're like 3 sentence comics. Like it's not.
That's fair enough. I think that's.
I did make it sound like I wrote my first book when I was 4. I was Booker Prize shortlisted at 4.5, and
You're like Mark Twain
yeah,
shortlisted
yeah,
at the age
yeah,
of 6,
yeah.
5. That's. Wait, what was I gonna say? Because then, okay, so you started. You remember like starting with this, and
Well,
then
I this I barely remember this. By the way, my mom showed me. What I was living with my parents for 6 months during the pandemic, and she showed me. And to me, I don't really remember doing this, but to me, it was proof that I was always creative. Like, so this wasn't a moment where I discovered creativity. For me, it was like, oh, I've always been like this. Like, I've always been a creative kid. Like, I've always
Oh.
like making up things and playing and messing around. But I didn't. So what I like doing the most right now as an adult is making films, and I think I didn't um, pinpointed that that is the outlet that I want for my creativity until I was maybe like 16 or so. Because when I was 16 in school, there was this filmmaker, which he's very famous by the way, but also obscure depending on what you're into. Xavier Dolan, he's a French Canadian filmmaker, and he was like a child actor, and then when he was 18, he used his like child actor money to like launch his career as a film director, basically. And when he was like by 19, he had written and directed and starred in a feature film that's actually really good. It's called I Killed My Mother. And he premiered at like a bunch of like really prestigious festivals, and he was like an overnight success,
Oh wow.
like a wonder kid. Yeah. And then he made another film afterwards, I Killed My Mother, and I think then it was like Heartbeats, which premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. Like he just be like overnight like success. And I remember when I was 16, I just saw this like 19-year-old kid making films, like writing, directing, and starring in films about him just like being gay and creative. And I was like, and he like I was 16, like he was not much older than me. I
Yeah.
was like, I want to do that. Like I want to make really like personal and confessional art that is about me being me and like expressing myself through that. And I feel like that was the moment where I was like, I think film is cool and I want to do that. But I think I was always creative before that. I just, yeah.
That is
Yeah.
so cool. And then because obviously now we are going to talk about the movie that
Yeah.
we've done. What's it called again?
So it's called Love Lost. It's a short film that I directed back in November and it's coming out in June 29th. We're premiering at the Brighton Rocks Film Festival. This is shameless plug, of course. Like if you happen to be in Brighton around the 29th of June, the film is going to be screened at the Manchester Street Arts Club in the evening. So yeah, if you fancy pop into the Brighton Rocks International Film Festival and you want to see it, I'm very proud of it. It's so I've written screenplays before, but I've never really gotten anything made. Like it's very hard to get a script produced in general, regardless of how established you are. And I was getting a bit frustrated by it because I love writing, but I love seeing my writing like made as well.
Of course.
And yeah, last year I just decided, well, maybe I should just like make it myself, as opposed to like waiting for someone to just make it. And yeah, it's been a long journey. It's been like over a year's work, closer to 2 years work, really. But yeah, we shot it back in November. We're still finishing post production. Like we're mastering next week, and then we just have to send it to the festival for the premiere. And it's really exciting that we already have a date for a premiere in less than a month. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's really cool. And then you were saying because you wrote um stuff before, and that's what I was
Yeah.
actually very curious about. Like, how do you yeah, like how what do you do? Like, how do you know on like do you know what's next now, or did you know that this is going to be the thing that you are going to try to like get out there? And again, like you said, if you can't get someone to help it, you're going to do it yourself. Or how, like, what was your train process through all this? Because like you're saying, well, you know what, I keep writing stuff, like, I've got it and I know it's good, and it's a good story, it's a good thing. Mm, I just need to show it.
Hmm. I think in any kind of creative process you need a good, and this is what I tell myself and what I try to live by. I think in any kind of creative process you need a good balance between like self-will, which by which I mean just the persistence to do something no matter what. But also on the other hand, I think you also need to hold like context, and in a way, it sounds contradictory, but following the path of least resistance in a way. So I've written things before that didn't get made. Maybe they weren't good enough. Maybe they did. It wasn't the time for them to get made. When I wrote this short film, I someone that I went to uni with, um, who read it, told me, "Oh, my friend Camila, who's a producer, um, like she read it because of whatever, and like she really liked it. Like, we want to make it." So it kind of like, and then so it was just the fact that like someone was interested in it, and someone was as excited about it as I was, because I feel like like film is definitely a creative medium, but I feel like any kind of art form is creative. Like, even if you're a novelist, like you need an editor that's excited about what you're writing. Otherwise, you're going to be doing all of the heavy lifting.
Yeah,
You're just
yeah,
going to
yeah.
be obsessive, like trying to motivate people who are just not into it. It's like you need people on your team. So in a way, it's like, yes, you still have to get up in the morning and write, even if no one's going to read it or no one's going to like it. But at the end of the day, just find, yeah, I think you just need to find your crew and stick with them. I think winning people over is overrated. I feel like, like in the world of stand up, like you're encouraged to, like, you need to win them over, like
Yeah.
they hated me at the beginning. Like, I didn't want to be there. Like, they didn't want me to be there. Yeah, they didn't speak English, but that's fine. Like, I just did facial expressions, and then, you know, and it's like, well, it's okay if you just like gravitate towards the people that
Are
vibe
into
with you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I agree with that because I do see it at times where, although again I know it's one of those things where the person itself, people are either in agreement or disagreement with him. I think of Rick Rubin, and he had a bit about it in his book about how he said that you have to show people why your work is good.
Yeah.
And it stuck with me, since I read the book, and like the way I do my own comedy now, what I'm like, look, some people are going to love it, some people are not going to love it.
Yeah.
Given the fact that there are 8 billion people on this planet, it's pretty likely that most of them
Yeah.
are not going to love it. But as long as you show why it deserves love, or like
Yeah.
why it deserves attention, why it deserves for people to get into it,
Yeah.
then whoever, again, wants to will get into it. And I very much again, I see that, and I agree. I think it's you can't and it's so easy now to go on, especially like you said, when you're like or at a gig in general, comedy, whether professional or open mic or whatever it is, and you're like, oh my god, I want every single person from here to love me. They don't know you.
Yeah.
You give them a snippet of like who you are, and then they might get into it, and if they do, they'll just keep coming back for more.
Yeah.
But accepting that some, and I think that was actually a huge thing that I got into more recently, that statistically there will be the minority that's gonna like you if you go out there in front of, like, again, 8 billion, say that everyone is a movie critic
Yeah.
or like a movie fan.
Yeah.
It's likely that, like, even what was it, the Titanic was the best one, right? And then the
Yeah.
Avatar, not best one, but like financially most successful,
Yeah.
and Avatar took over. And I don't know what's now. um I think even like, look, again, all I'm saying is more people probably were like, either I'm not going to watch it, or like I'm not into movies, than
Yeah.
once were actually into it. But then it still is very successful.
Yeah.
So like that's the thing. Yeah, I feel like it's more about, this is my work. Have a look at it. If you don't like it, fair enough.
Yeah.
If you do, I've got more.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I feel it's just like, yeah, but like, I think it's about enjoying the process as well, right? Well, for me, it has to be about enjoying the process. Otherwise, I'll be miserable, and I don't want to be miserable. And I think part of enjoying the process is, if it feels like I'm fighting everyone and everything to get this made, maybe it's not worth it. I know that might sound like really unpopular, like this, but but yeah, it's like I need at least one person in my corner. Um, and yeah, there's gonna be so much adversity on the in the way, so much. And I know that from like making this film as well. Like there was so much adversity, and there were moments where the film nearly doesn't get made. But at the end of the day, my core crew was just so into it that I was like, cool. Like we're a team, we're doing this together, nice. If everyone had been there just as a job, like, oh, I'm just doing this to get paid to do it, like it would have been a miserable experience. Or yeah, or if I'm just like trying to convince people like, please like me, please like me. It's like at some point you're like, girl, like get it together. Like this group of people, they're never gonna like you. Like just um go to whoever actually values you. And I think that's something that you can apply to your personal life, to your personal relationship, but also to your creative practice. Like it's striking a healthy balance though, because you could also be delusional and like you could be making absolute horseshit and being like, well, it's my art, whatever. Like, if you don't get it, you don't get it. It's like, I think it's striking a good balance where you're like, you're open to feedback and you're open to understanding how what you create fits in the larger context of, you know, around you and of society. But with just being able to like still do what turns you on, what you like. Yeah, it's bloody difficult and yeah.
I mean, it would be, and I think from what you were saying earlier as well about like finding there is a fine line, because I thought about something that you said before where you're like, you know, the unpopular opinion, when you're like, oh, some people I think is not is unpopular if you like, oh, you get like many no's, or like you don't get people into it, and then you're like, okay, cool, maybe it's not the right thing. But actually I think again it's very, if anything, it's also very healthy to be like, you know what, okay, fair enough, maybe I don't see it now, I don't understand, I and it hurts, you know. I think the amount of times like I find when I write, you know, like a joke, for example, and then I'm like, I think it's brilliant, or like I get it, but then the audience, or like the people that I have, like my close, either like comedy friends or people from like my close circle that I sometimes like share with, and I'm like, oh, what do you think about this? And then they're like, oh, I don't get it. And it hurts, but I'm like, okay, fine, it is what it is. Then I gotta, like, you can't just like, yeah, shove something to up like someone's
Just shove
throat.
your agenda on everyone and anyone. Yeah.
But also I think it's so wonderful when you finally get to see that person who's like, oh, they get me, they get the work,
Yeah.
they want,
Yeah.
and also like you said, they want to be involved.
Yeah.
This is such a beautiful, yeah, I think it's such a beautiful experience, and like I said, it makes it that's where it makes it worth, because you're like, you know, I'm not delusional.
Yeah.
There is someone
Yeah.
who is into this, you know, and then someone else joins, and then someone
Yeah.
else joins, and then you're like, okay, cool. And like you said, no, we got the people to do the legwork. Now let's put it out there.
Yeah. And I feel like this hypothetical joke that this example that you put of like, I told a joke, it didn't work, and I have to abandon it. I feel like that joke, it's probably it it probably still carries something really like intrinsic about you that will find its way into another piece of work. You know what I mean? Like you should, like if you like that joke for whatever reason, maybe there's something valuable in it. It just wasn't meant to. Maybe it's not a joke. Maybe it's an idea for a podcast. Maybe you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Maybe it is whatever. Maybe it's an idea for a series, or maybe it is a joke, but it has to be told differently, or whatever. Like I feel like if the the theme of that project that you try to do, or of that joke or whatever, is something that really resonate with you, it will find its way into another one of your projects. So yeah, and yeah, and I feel that way about like other things that I've written that I haven't made yet. It's like maybe it's the expression of it, maybe they need to be something different. uh Maybe actually like the themes, they still resonate with me, and I will keep on writing about those themes, but I'm going to write about them in a different light, or I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now, do you want to tell us a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit, a little snippet of what, yeah, was the movie about? Who's involved with it as well?
Yeah. So the film is produced independently by Camila Basora, with who is the producer of the film, and it was co-produced by uh, Nymeria Productions. I hope I'm saying that right. Um, um, who's who's this wonderful little production company from here, from London, that specializes in short films, and they really helped us with putting the film out there with film festivals, and just gave us like a lot of industry advice then that like I had no idea about. And the film is a family drama, kind of like camouflaged as a thriller, maybe.
Okay.
If I were to describe it in, some people might disagree. And basically, it's the story of Joao, who's a Portuguese sex worker that comes to London and infiltrates a brothel with the hopes to connect with a regular client that goes to that brothel. And that's what I can tell you without spoiling.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And I think like one of the themes, we were talking just now about how do you balance a good strike, like oh my god, how do you strike a good balance? How do you strike a
Actually,
good, yeah?
I haven't even noticed.
You
You did the
understood
same.
what I said. Just
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. How do you strike a good balance between having to prove yourself and just like sticking with people who really value you? And I think that the film is a little bit about that on some level. It's about someone who's looking for um approval and support and validation in the wrong places, and they kind of have to undergo a journey of reassess where they actually look for these things. But yeah,
That sounds very cool,
yeah,
and I'd love to watch it.
I would love for you to
I
watch it.
Yeah, if hopefully there is a screening in London soon,
Yeah,
because I don't live in Brighton.
yeah, yeah, I know.
But yeah, I'd love to, because it sounds amazing. It sounds really cool,
Yeah,
and I love the plot. Is that the right word? The
yeah.
plot, yeah. Like from what you've described so far, it sounds amazing.
I'm so I'm so glad to hear that it resonates with you. I can't wait to show it to you. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I wish. No, it's yeah, it's fascinating. I think I'm trying to think about like what's happening next in our conversation, but my the most of my imagination is actually, oh, I wonder what is happening now in the movie. What was it called again?
Love Lost,
Love Lost. And
as in there's no love lost. That idiom that maybe a lot of English speakers recognize.
I actually
Yeah,
didn't.
just like when two people like fall out, you might say, "Oh well, there was no love lost," which means they never got on anyway.
Ah, okay,
Yeah,
okay. Well, now before we wrap it up, because I appreciate you taking the time. It is. Is there anything else? First, anything else you want to say? And if not, or after, if you want to let people know where to find details about you, about the movie, um, and once again, let's just make sure we know where it's going to be this month.
yes. So if you want me to repeat it, the film is premiering at the Brighton Rocks International Film Festival in Brighton on June the 29th. and the venue is called Manchester Street Arts Club, and it's at 5 p.m. June 29th, Brighton. And if you're not in Brighton, you're not going to be in Brighton, but you're a film fan, short film fan, and you want to hope to that you can catch it somewhere. You can follow the film on Instagram, where we're doing a pretty long tour of the film. We're hoping to across the UK and internationally as well. So if you want to know where it might be screening next, you can follow the film on Instagram. The handle is love lost underscore short film. And if you want to follow me because you like the sound of my voice and you thought that I was very lovely to listen to, you can follow me on Instagram as well at Pablo P. Saura. That's Saura. Pablo P. Saura. Saura. The P is for my middle name that I never use.
Well,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, once again, thank you so much for doing this. And
thank you for having me. I had a blast.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good. And hopefully, we'll do it again because I feel like there are still a lot of things that we have not covered.
Yeah, there's still a lot of ways of killing ourselves that we haven't discussed. It's a long list.
Yeah, yeah. If you have a favorite way, let us know. Yeah. But look after yourself, man. That's the most important thing.
Me too.
Or yeah, again, I was trying to remember. There was like a joke about how what's the next thought of someone who's committed suicide. I wish I haven't done that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
Anyway,
if they could have one, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we are living on a happy note. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pretty good, right? Right? I hope so. Anyway, I hope it was what you wished for. I hope it was better than what you wished for, but I hope it was at least what you wished for. If you wished for something good, because we had a great time recording. And yeah, thank you. And you'll hear back from us on Monday. Until then, stay skillful. Look after yourselves. Bye bye.